I am Kaden Matinpour, and welcome to my very first Marvel recap to prepare you for the long-awaited Spider-Man Brand New Day. Spider-Man has always been my favorite superhero, which I know is an extremely generic answer. Trust me, as much as I love to be super niche and say my favorite character is the Broccoli Man from Quantumania, or Toad.
You know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning?
Spider-Man will always be my top choice. Growing up, I was raised by the Ultimate Spider-Man animated show, which introduced me to incredible characters such as Spider-Noir, Miles Morales, and Luke Cage, aka Power Man.
The big guy here is Luke
Power Man. If he calls himself Spider-Man, then I'm calling myself Power Man. It's cool and doesn't scream, I have low self-esteem.
It also made me genuinely fear Dr. Doom. They really found a way to make him feel very untouchable.
Okay, I'll say it. We're doomed.
Plus, Beast Boy is my favorite DC character thanks to voice actors like Greg Cipes, so having him voice Iron Fist was absolutely perfectional casting. Honestly, it's too bad that they never really made a live action version of Iron Fist. Iron Fist would have been such a perfect addition to the Defenders during that era. But sadly, there has never been a live action Iron Fist. Anyways, my first ever comic was Amazing Fantasy number 15. Since then, I've read around 400 comics, and I think easily 75% of them are probably Spider-Man titles. I even got this new comic signed by Jeff Loeb, the writer of Batman The Long Halloween, where he signed a copy of Spider-Man Superman, and I have like 3 copies of this, and I have so many copies of Spider-Man comics everywhere. And this isn't even including the comics I've read on my phone about Spider-Man and on my Kindle. And I recently got the PS5 and accidentally got addicted to the Spider-Man game for 72 hours straight. The ending of No Way Home was the first time I cried watching a movie. And most Marvel videos I have a Where the Heck is Spider-Man segment. Anyways, believe it or not, I kind of like Spider-Man.
They love me.
If you've been watching my channel for a while, first off, thank you. Secondly, you probably know I have my critiques of Tom Holland's Peter Parker in the past, but between the ending of No Way Home and Tom Holland's incredible acting in The Odyssey, I truly believe that we're about to get the most faithful adaptation yet. In fact, this might end up being the best Spider-Man movie, even surpassing Spider-Man 2 Into the Spider-Verse. Heck, maybe it'll be better than Doomsday.
I'm ruined. I have nothing left. Except Spider-Man.
Let's dive into the recap, starting all the way back in 2002. Peter Parker is just living a happy little tale. Just an average guy without a care in the world. Wait.
If somebody said it was a happy little tale, if somebody told you I was just your average ordinary guy not a care in the world, somebody lied.
A radioactive spider bites Peter. He meets a mentor figure, Norman Osborn, whose son, Harry, goes to the same high school as Peter, alongside all their other 30-year-old classmates. Peter is madly in love with Mary Jane Watson, which kicks off the cinematic trend of having MJ go from the bright, independent, I don't need a man MJ from the comics. Instead, she's written more like Jenny from Forrest Gump, completely running to the first abusive man because she grew up in an abusive household, ignoring the one guy who's actually been nice to her that she's known since elementary school. Oh my gosh, Spider-Man is literally Forrest Gump on steroids. Anyways, Norman basically gets the super soldier serum, gets fired from his own company.
But you can't do this to me. You know how much I sacrificed?
Steals his own tech and becomes the Green Goblin, an evil man yet polite enough to let you finish your prayers.
Finish it! Finish it!
Green Goblin finds out Peter is Spider-Man because he has a cut on his arm like Spider-Man did when he fought him, and realizes, gosh dang it, no one in history has ever a cut on their arm except Spider-Man. So he kidnaps MJ and they have a really awesome final battle that's cut short when Norman pretends to be normal and fatherly. But Peter then remembers Uncle Ben, which, long story short, causes Norman to die exactly the way he did in the comics, by his own glider. His butler sees it and decides he's not going to tell anyone about it because reasons. And Harry decides to go on a vendetta against Spider-Man while Peter tells MJ he won't go out with her. Which, I mean, they're at a funeral. That's the best time to talk about that. So how do you two meet? She asked me out over the grave of her ex's dad as he was being lowered into the ground. What? 2 years later, he delivers pizza, MJ gets engaged to John Jameson, and a mentor figure appears, Otto Octavius this time. Doc Ock builds 4 arms, and because 4 arms are stupid and suck, and honestly dumb and not important and couldn't help society at all, he decides to go bigger with recreating the power of the sun so that he can have it. in the palm of his hands because... Anyways, Harry funds it, the Sun Project doesn't work out, causing the chip that stops him from being evil to explode, along with his wife, and he becomes evil. Kidnaps Mary Jane, the bad guy kills himself, and MJ dumps her boyfriend. You see, it's different this time, because MJ dumped John instead of Harry. Also, Harry finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, his butler just shuts the heck up about everything, and he's set up as the one villain of the final chapter's trilogy. Oh, and MJ finds out that he's Spider-Man because a common thread in the multiverse is Peter kind of sucks at his secret identities. 3 years later, Peter's Spider-Man kind of just stops working because a meteor crashes behind him, a symbiote attaches to his bike, and then it gets to his apartment, latches onto his suit, and he's like, sure, why not? This is happening, I guess. And then he goes for an evil, completely normal dance break. Then Sandman appears, and he's really a bad guy. Covered in sand, constantly trying to kill people. He killed Uncle Ben, and he's also kind of sympathetic because he has a daughter he never really talks to. And as we all know, in society, if you have a kid that you never show up for except to pick up a locket of her own face that she wore around for some reason, you're not evil. It's just math.
You don't understand. I have a daughter. She's sick. That makes it okay for me to break the law. I'm not a bad person.
Meanwhile, Harry just keeps getting head traumas and falling from giant heights, but it's fine because he's actually wearing this thing under his suit called plot armor. And to surprise the audience, Venom captures MJ, accidentally kills himself by running to the Goblin Tech, and MJ dumps her boyfriend. Oh, and Harry has a really sad death in his scene. As much as that movie doesn't get its flowers, that Harry death will always get me a little emotional as a kid.
Do you have a best friend too?
I did.
You did?
He died in my arms. After he tried to kill me.
Moving on to 2008 in Universe 616, or Universe 1999999. I think that's the right amount of nines. Anyways, Bruce Banner, expert gamma scientist, tests and experiments on himself that makes him look like Jekyll and Hyde if they were written in Scott Snyder's Absolute Universe. Oh, and he has a girlfriend, Betty, who honestly is there. Anyways, 4 years later, he joins the Avengers, and we slowly see as he starts to be able to control his transformation, which honestly, as we will see, will completely fall apart.
That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry.
In that same year, in Andrew Garfield's universe, which I will call 688, which I know technically isn't the term for that universe, and as much as I don't want to associate Andrew Garfield with Morbius, it is nice to think about a timeline where him and Tom Hardy's Venoms could possibly combine together.
So many snacks, so little time.
Anyways, in 2012, Peter Parker is your average high school guy, skateboarding, dealing with bullies, and taking pictures of women so that he can put them on his computer and then just stare at them and oh my gosh, I think this Peter Parker is more of a creep than we give him credit for.
He's got you on his computer.
He's a menace to the entire city. I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted. I want him strung up by his web!
Though if movies have ever taught me anything, nothing you can ever do is creepy, as long as you're hot. Anyways, he meets a mentor figure, Peter gets bit, the mentor gets to an experiment, becomes green, gets a goblin mask, a lizard arm, and becomes evil. And eventually does get cured by Spider-Man, because ironically, this is the one Spider-Man who was actually able to redeem his villains before No Way Home. Meanwhile, Cat Stacy, his girlfriend Gwen's dad, announces his hatred for Spider-Man, and since Spider-Man literally does reveal his identity to basically everyone in this movie, at some point at least, including her dad, he tries to save him and dies, leading to the canon event that will come back later in Spider-Verse movies.
Oh, that's another story. Never mind. Anyway.
He makes Peter promise that to not talk to Gwen so that she doesn't die, and he says sure, but iconically, Peter has never followed the promises of an old man dying.
With great power comes great...
Yada yada yada.
So yeah, she dies. That's pretty much all I'm going to get into. I think we all remember The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I think none of us want to relive it. Anyway, Anyways, we get back to Hulk in 616 as he fights against Hydra until Wanda Maximoff gives him a vision so terrifying he goes on a rampage to be put down by the Hulk Buster armor. Meanwhile, we see as Bruce Banner have a romantic relationship with Natasha Romanoff, and while it's important to a character, there's not really anything much notable that happens in that relationship. Anyways, Hulk becomes so ashamed of himself, he gets on a plane and he leaves Earth to rediscover himself before getting stuck on Sakaar and staying with the Hulk for 2 years, as he actually starts to form an actual personality. But keeping Bruce stuck under actually psychologically tortures him, even though it's only 2 years.
Maybe the fact that I was trapped for 2 years inside of a monster made me a little weird.
Which foreshadows how Bruce will keep Hulk in the trunk for a literal decade until Spider-Man wakes up in the upcoming movie. But we'll get to that soon.
To be continued.
In 2016, we see as the mob bosses start to mysteriously get murdered and disappeared, as we discover it was from the guns of Frank Castle, the Punisher, whose family died in a mob shooting which was all orchestrated by his best friend. And the mob. And the CIA, and the Irish, and the Mexican, and some rogue squadron led by Jigsaw, and a pedophile, and the pedophile's mom, and his dad, and his brother, and their entire family. Pretty much all of these people had something to do with the murder of Frank Castle's family, I think. When I say I think, I mean it took me forever to finally figure all of that out. Please don't make me rewatch all of his shows and decipher that all again. Anyways, he goes to court with a blind lawyer, Matt Murdock, and he wants to Castle to plead that he has PTSD because he fought in Iraq. But instead, he yells at the judge that not only does he not feel remorseful for all of his murders, but later he gets a supply of weaponry and becomes a rampaging Punisher. That same year, Captain America and Iron Man get angry over the Sokovia Accords, and since all of the Avengers except Black Widow and Vision join Team Cap, Tony decides to have the local Queen hero, Spider-Man, join his team and to pretend he is joining an internship. Peter gets a new suit and puts up against both Bucky and Sam, but Captain America and Ant-Man kind of forget the whole we don't attack kids rule and get pretty close to killing him.
Yeah.
Oh, that was scary.
Yeah, you're done, all right? You did a good job. Stay down.
I'm good, I'm fine. In this universe, Uncle Ben dies and doesn't say anything profound about responsibility like a weirdo. So we see more of a reckless Spider-Man who discovers a weapon smuggling between the Shocker and the Prowler, and ends up getting caught by a Birdman and thrown into the ocean before being saved by Tony Stark. We learn that the Birdman is Michael Keaton, who was a regular cleanup guy who was fired after the Department of Damage Control took over his job, but not before he stole some tech and he and his buddies became the Shocker, the Tinkerer, and finally, Keaton's character, Adrian Toomes, aka becomes...
I'm Batman.
Sorry, I mean the Vulture. Meanwhile, Peter and his friend Ned Leeds, who in the comics does become the villain Hobgoblin,
And I promise you, I won't turn into a supervillain and try to kill you.
Liar! Go on a trip to DC with an academic decathlon because they found out that the Vulture's next big target is going to be within that area. But then a piece of alien tech that Peter found in his first fight with the Shocker and left with Ned blows up in an elevator, and Peter has to save them, discovering all of his new tech. After another fight with the Vulture, Peter discovers his AI, Karen. Later on, he asks out his crush, Liz, who in the comics was a love interest to Peter before she marries Harry Osborn. He interrogates the Prowler until he tells them that the Shocker is going to have another meeting with Mac Gargan, aka the Scorpion, and also teases that he has a nephew, setting up a possible MCU Miles Morales, but MCU is probably never going to let go of that golden goose.
I'm gonna do my own thing.
Peter stops the dealing, but then the FBI gets involved and screws up everything before the boat slits in half, and Mac gets hit by a car, getting him evil head trauma, which, you know, isn't really that off-brand for a Spider-Man movie at this point.
It's upsetting that the delusional episodes have returned, but not entirely unexpected.
Anyways, Iron Man stops the boat from collapsing and fires Peter before Peter proves his worth by making a homemade suit and defeating the Shocker and stopping the Vulture from robbing the Avengers, who by this point knows Peter's secret identity, as we discover that he is the father of Liz, causing Peter to have to choose between his romance or responsibility, and of course he chooses responsibility. Later that year, Thor is banished to Sakaar by Hela and runs into the Incredible Hulk, who is now a gladiator for the brother of the Collector, the Grandmaster.
Know each other. He's a friend from work.
Thor frees him after discovering that the Hulk has been keeping Banner down for 2 years, mentally and psychologically torturing him, and they form the Revengers and defeat Hela. but not before Asgard explodes. At the same time on Earth, Frank Castle is running loose, and he's killing everyone who could possibly tie into the death of the family, and that's pretty much the one sentence you need to know for that show. Then we get to the Infinity War, where we see the Hulk for the final time get defeated by Thanos and refuse to come out.
What do you mean?
Little did Hulk know this refusal would come out to only lead to more psychological torture for him this time. Meanwhile, Spider-Man does go up to space with Tony to fight Thanos, but Banner and Parker both lose the fight against Thanos, and Peter fades away for the next 5 years. 5 years later, it is shown that Bruce has found a way to mesh the smarts of Banner with the body of Hulk to create Smart Hulk, which pretty much gives Bruce the strength while burying the Hulk into a void that he doesn't really have to worry about. And he goes back in time and collects the stone, uses his gamma radiation to survive the snapping, everyone's back into life. And him and Peter do fight against Thanos one last time, but never actually meet until Tony Stark's funeral. Maybe. I'm not really sure. Anyways, we get to 2024, where Peter goes on a class trip to Europe, where he meets Mysterio, an ex-Stark employee who wants revenge. Crazy, right? And he fights Peter over the Edith glasses as Peter is trying to win over Michelle Jones's heart. Mysterio loses, but not before having the Daily Bugle's J. Jonah Jameson post a story about Peter being Spider-Man and the cause of Mysterio's monstrous attacks.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
He gets help from a lawyer from Matt Murdock once again, who would later have his own big reveal of being a superhero himself.
I am Daredevil.
And he helps them escape the legal charges, but he, MJ, and Ned are all rejected by MIT for political reasons. Sidebar, Matt Murdock actually did fight the Hand in 2017 with the future couple Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and absolutely no one else was part of that team, and they called themselves the Defenders, and stopped the Hand from their quest for immortality through their crazy death culty ways, which will come back in this movie apparently. So he goes to ex-Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, and he accidentally messes up Steven's spell to make everyone forget Peter Parker. Instead, it brought everyone who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man to their Earth, including Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Sandman, Lizard, and Electro, and a man from Earth 688 who in 2018 had bonded with a symbiote named Venom that was part of a much larger hive mind that knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man because of the dance in Spider-Man 3. Peter tries to secure the first 5 villains I mentioned after Aunt May convinced him of redemption, but Norman betrays them as they are curing Dr. Octopus, killing Aunt May as she tells them that
With great power comes great responsibility.
Peter goes into depression, and when Ned and MJ try to find him, they end up accidentally finding Tobey Maguire's Peter and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Then they help Tom Holland's Peter deal with grief and show how to live on their family's legacy and getting back up.
Get up, Spider-Man.
They team up to fight the Sinister Four! And while they do cure Electro, Lizard, and Sandman, Peter 1, Tom Holland's Peter, is hellbent on killing the Green Goblin as he tries to stab him with his own glider. But not for Peter 2, Tobey Maguire's Peter, stops him with an intense staring competition that is interrupted by a stabbing that I guess he lives through. Peter 1 tells Doctor Strange to complete the spell and make everyone forget him, and he says his goodbyes to MJ and Ned as everyone returns home. MJ gives him his necklace and says to return it and make them remember him. But the next day, he sees how happy they are without him, and he once again chooses the responsibility of not putting them in harm's way. Meanwhile, Hulk gets into a car crash with a cousin, and then their bloods start to actually fuse together, and she becomes the indestructible She-Hulk, and he teaches her how to be a Hulk. And then he goes off screen and starts a family on Sakaar, and he gave his son a terrible haircut. No more questions asked, please and thank you. Punisher then does get so scarred from the blip that the only thing that could bring him back into the game was the fact that Kingpin took over, and he wanted to take down the guys that was working for the Kingpin who used his symbol for their terrible policing practices. And then he says, screw it, and ditches them to Sicily, and he goes to defeat other people tied to his family because of reasons. And then we go back to Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is 4 years after the Spider-Man No Way Home, where MJ probably now has just graduated from MIT along with Ned Leeds, who has started a company to try and find Spider-Man and track him. But now that is everything they could possibly know before the release of Spider-Man Brand New Day. What did you guys think of this recap? Should I do more of this, or was it just kind of a waste of time? Are you guys excited for Brand New Day? Honestly, I have been kind of talking about it non-stop recently, so I know it is already going to be one of the greatest Spider-Man movies ever, and I'm calling it now. Though I'm not really sure about how I feel about Hulk being in this, I know Punisher and Spidey have an awesome relationship, and I can tell Michael Mando is going to be an amazing Scorpion. This is Kaden Matinpour saying...
You stick classy.